This is Digital Tools for Architects InDesign Tutorial 2.2, Place, Resize, and Cropping of Images in Adobe InDesign. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create a brand new document in Adobe InDesign. And it doesn't really matter what size, but there's a bunch of preset sizes here that we can choose from. I'm going to do a compact disk size for right now. It's kind of a nice size. We'll go ahead and say OK, and we'll see our document right here. And there's a couple things that I personally like to change. Being from the architecture world, working in pica units doesn't really do it for me. So I'm going to switch over to be in inches. So I'm going to go up to the Preferences menu, which on a Mac is under InDesign Preferences. On a PC is under File Preferences or Edit Preferences, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, I'm going to go to Units and Increments, and I'm going to change my ruler units to be in inches. And we'll go ahead and say OK. And now I can see that I have inches across the top here, which makes a little bit more intuitive sense to me. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change my margins, and I suggest doing this just because these margins are set arbitrarily at a ½ inch. And I think more often as not, they really don't matter. So I'll make those go away for right now. So I set those to be 0, and I'll go ahead and say OK. So now we're going to work on placing images. And so we have a couple different ways that we can do this. We can place an image directly without creating a frame first by going up to the File menu and selecting Place. And then browsing to our images. And let's see if I can find one really quick here. And I'll go ahead and say Open. And it'll give me the little place cursor here with a preview of my image. And when I click, it will make a very, very large, it'll actually be full-size version of the file that I have. And so I had to press Control- to be able to see a little bit more. I can drag this to be kind of in my document space here. And realistically, I'm going to have to use the free transform tool here to make this smaller so that it starts to approximate the size of the object that I'm trying to create in the first place. So this is a little bit cumbersome, however. Let me press Control-0 so we can see it a little bit closer here. It's a little bit cumbersome, so a lot of times you'll want to create the frame first. So I just deleted that image. We're going to come back over here, and we're going to use the frame tool. And I'll use the rectangle frame tool. If we click and hold, there's also an ellipse or a polygon frame tool. We're going to start with just the rectangular frame tool. And I want to create a full-size image here. So I will go from one corner to the other, and it creates this nice little frame. And you can tell that it's a frame because it has an X through it. Now the advantage here is that once I've created the frame, when I choose to do a place, if I select the frame first, and then I go to File and Place, we'll pick the same image here, and I click Open, it will fill just my particular piece of frame, which is really, really convenient. It doesn't, however, show all of my image. So I really want to change that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to go to Fitting. Now I have a bunch of options here. I have Fill Frame Proportionally, Fit Content Proportionally, Fit Frame to Content, Fit Content to Frame, Center Content, Clear Frame, Fitting Options, etc. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the frame proportionally so that we can kind of get a sense for what that does. And so when I fill the frame proportionally, if I navigate to my direct selection tool here for a second, you can see, let me minimize this, you can see that my overall size of my image is represented by that brown, that light brown rectangle, and that it's filling my frame proportionally because the image is only tall enough to fill. Okay? If I go and I change my fitting, so let me undo for a second, and I right-click again and I go to Fitting, and I say Fit Content Proportionally, it will fit the entire image inside of my frame, and it'll leave me with a transparent space on top and bottom. It looks like it's white space, but it's actually transparent if I had an object underneath it. Let's undo that for a second. If I go to File, or excuse me, if I right-click and I go to Fitting, and I say Fit Frame to Content, it will make the frame large enough. Let me press Control- so we can see here. It'll make the frame large enough to contain all of the content, which usually isn't what you want to do. And if I right-click again and go to Fitting, and I say fit content to frame, right, it'll fit it inside my frame, but it also squishes the image to fit. So generally that's not the ideal circumstance either. So let me, oops, I went back too many. Let me go to fitting here. Center content also will center the content so that it's centered on my particular window. So let me go to fitting, and I'm going to fill frame proportionally. Perfect. Right now it's centered, but I want this upside down rhinoceros to be over a little bit more. So with the direct selection tool selected, you'll see that when I mouse over the image, my cursor changes to a hand. I'm going to drag this over a bit. Now I can hold shift to make sure it drags just in a line here. And so we'll drag that over a little bit, and we'll have placed an image inside of a frame in Adobe InDesign. So this is Digital Tools for Architects InDesign Tutorial 2.2 about placing, resizing, and cropping images.